Welcome everybody to our next WestGrid Town Hall. Usual things, appreciate if you keep the mics muted and turn off your video unless you want to ask a question, but feel free to do so. I see that Erica has set up this lovely slide of outdoor things and spring. Hopefully it's still out there somewhere. Of course, with COVID-19, everybody, I guess, is working at home, and we're kind of fortunate at WestGrid in that we're completely online and virtual anyhow. So so it hasn't made a big difference to some of our work practices, but yeah, I hope everybody's coping with it and doing well. And another minor detail is that I'm live just outside Calgary, and it's been snowing mostly for the last week or so. So I hope we will indeed see some of these flowers starting to grow. Right, usual stuff then, that you can ask questions at info, use the group chat, and say mute your mic unless you have a question. And our outline here, we've got a brief introduction from our new CEO, Jay Black from Endrio, the new digital research infrastructure organization will be around to give us an update. I think you might remember he gave us an update there before Christmas as well. And then I'll talk about our COVID-19 Compute Canada responses and the 2020 RAC and some operations, and then as usual Alex will finish off by telling us about the WestGrid user training ends of things. John, I think John Longbottom, our new CEO, is just joined, and I think he was going to introduce himself and make some remarks.
Oh, hi there. Welcome everybody. I noticed that there will be 6 people join. 6 people leave. I don't know what's going on with the technology, so hopefully we have a quorum. But thanks, Patrick. I don't want to take a lot of time. I just want to extend my best wishes out to this team. I've told Patrick and others that in the time I've been here, I've been able to discover that it is one fantastic team, which I termed the mighty team. And that we're doing such great work, and we really do appreciate it. I'm really excited to be part of this organization at a very important time of transition, and of course Jay will give us a good context of that as it paints what our future could be, might be, should be. And at the same time, we as an organization are looking for ways of extending our reach and range and adding more value to the community that we serve and maybe serving other communities. So I just want to say, thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this organization. Fortunately or unfortunately, it starts with, the world of COVID. And by the way, we have to look at it as a positive thing. It's a positive opportunity for us to rethink the world as we know it, rethink the way we do things. Although I'm sure it's pretty taxing on a lot of people to be self-isolating and worried about your family, and so my hope is that everybody is good, everybody's healthy, your families are healthy, and we stay that way for the foreseeable future. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. I asked Patrick if I could join and participate in this town hall. If there are any questions ever, please don't hesitate to reach out to anybody on the team, myself particularly, and I look forward to building a stronger relationship with you all moving on through time. So thank you very much. I'll pass it back to you, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, John, and yeah, welcome to WestGrid. I do see people kicking out and coming back in again every now and again. I wouldn't be surprised if this is video and video conferencing and network connections and such. We've seen this kind of thing happening a bit. So if any of the speakers do cut out, then we'll just stop for a minute or two to let the speakers rejoin, and I hope that that everybody is able to stay with us. Yeah, I think even the big cloud providers are getting a bit swamped these days. Right, so our next item is the NDRIO, the New Digital Research Infrastructure Organization, and I'm really happy to introduce Jay Black. He's been a member of the NDRIO implementation team now for months, since last summer, I think, and he's also a WestGrid board member. I think, Jay, you've got your own presentation, so I will stop sharing and you can start.
Well, I have been doing a lot of things for NDRIO over the last 6 or 8 months. Most of them have been in setting up the administrative side of it, and I haven't really been involved in all of the discussions with Compute Canada and the Compute Canada Federation. So we are NDRIO, we are la nouvelle organisation d'infrastructure de recherche numérique. Finding a better name is somebody else's business, not ours, but maybe we'll even have a contest about that sometime soon. So I'm just going to give a quick overview and then open it up for questions. Please take some time, if you wish, to go and look at the NDRIO website, which is engagedri.ca, all one word. We're trying to be as open and consultative as we can, and as transparent as we can, so there's a lot of good information there. So just to make sure we're all talking about the same set of things, as we developed all of the position papers for the government, we decided, or we described things as 4 key elements of digital research infrastructure. Advanced research computing, basically the Compute Canada Federation and related things. Data management, including everything from managing big data in an operational sense to archival and long-term storage of the important records and products of research. Research software in the sense of, at least in my head, more broadly applicable software tools to enable researchers to better do their job. And then, of course, although we won't talk much more about it, Canary, the digital network that connects us all together and allows the researchers to collaborate. All of that supported underneath by cybersecurity activities and processes and procedures, and of course by all of the highly qualified personnel, which is many of you on the call. And again, although we haven't yet got very much to say publicly about that, we are very focused on making sure that the transition that we're going to be going through makes you all feel like there's a place for you moving forward. Where we're headed in terms of organizations is Canary will be concentrating more on the digital network, narrowly construed, and NDRIO will take the other 3 pillars of the DRI infrastructure, being data management, research software, and research computing. The data management part will include the Portage project, which Canary has been sponsoring, and will include the activities of Research Data Canada, as well as trying to expand the availability of data management tools and infrastructure across the country as part of our mandate. The research software file is perhaps the least mature, at least in my view, and there has been some activity on Canary's part, which was originally fairly vertically focused in narrow research areas. They've gradually been trying to broaden that out, but I think there's a lot more work to be done. And then advanced research computing is, of course, what WestGrid is all about, as well as Compute Canada Central and the rest of the members of the Federation. So that's where we're headed. NDRIO, as we've been doing our planning and our development, are articulating these 5 guiding principles for what we do, being focused on the researchers and what they need, being service-oriented, accountable and transparent, striving for excellence, and as collaborative as we can. So we're trying to keep all of these things in mind, and of course, it's easy to dismiss those as just pieces of publicity or propaganda, but we're really trying to make sure they're more than that. There's a very large set of priorities, and in the background of what's been going on over the last months, there is a lot of detail and a lot of detailed planning going on, basically in these three large streams: one of building the organization, one of building a new service delivery model, and one of coordinating all the transition activities, all the while helping the researchers and all of the partners and stakeholders, which includes, of course, WestGrid and all of the people there, and communicating constantly as we can. The last 6 months have been focused as much or more than anything perhaps on building the organization, the first pillar there, or the first broad set of priorities. And I'll talk a little bit about where we've ended up with that. We have already started issuing formal reports and submitting them to the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, which is the ministry that's overseeing and providing the funding to Embryo. On building the new service delivery model, I don't really have anything more to say. That's just getting underway, and we will be looking to consult widely with the community on exactly how to do that. We also have a requirement from ISED to do joint planning with Canary, and some of that has already started. And I know that others in Embryo are working hard with Compute Canada centrally and are starting to move out more and more into the regions in talking about what that transition activity, what those transition activities are. For the moment, a lot of it is in the planning phase. That's not something I've been involved in personally, but I know there's a lot going there. We are trying to maintain, as I said, that focus on all of the highly qualified personnel that we need to retain and want to retain. We're conscious of the need to pay explicit attention to change management as we move forward and professional development of people. And we also need to complete the data management and portage project transitions out of Canary. That's intended to be complete by middle of the fall, because the Canary special funding to portage will finish then, and Embryo has funding in place to continue those activities. On the governance front, we went through an extensive process in the fall of putting together a governance model, getting organized to find a board of governors and propose a board of governors to the members. That was a highly constrained process requiring from ISED, requiring us to have at least 50% representation of women on the board of directors, to have linguistic representation, geographic representation, First Nations representation, and independence of at least half of the board of directors. So you can find on the website who that set of board of directors is. It's a very distinguished set, I think, and again, I wasn't involved in finding the slate. I think the people who were doing that did an amazing job. I think the West is very well represented on that board of directors, with Gail Murphy, VPR at UBC, Peter McKinnon, former president of the University of Saskatchewan, David Barnard, outgoing president of the University of Manitoba, and Deb, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, Verhaven, perhaps, at the University of Alberta. So the West is well represented there. We're also moving to get the Researcher Council going, and I'll say a very little bit about that in just a moment. We were very pleased at the response to our call for members. We have 136, of which 51 are voting members who voted in the inaugural board at our meeting in early March. And we have 85 associate members, which are basically not only post-secondary institutions that chose not to be voting, but also many organizations that have DRI responsibilities. So organizations like the Canadian Association of Research Libraries, the Canadian Astronomical Association, I may not have the name right, but those kinds of organizations are all there. So we do have a good broad representation of members, but it's also important to keep in mind that membership doesn't determine what researchers are able to access the infrastructure. It's basically all of the post-secondary researchers in the country, regardless of whether they're home institutions or members. The Researcher Council we're starting to get underway. That's going to be led by Guillaume Bourque at McGill, who some of you may recall was a member of the applicant board, the earlier board of 4 people. We will be doing that in a kind of a two-stream process. There will be an initial ad hoc advisory group that Guillaume will be working with to get some early steps in place, and then that will lead up to formal requests for nominations and a formal process to actually get a permanent researcher council in place with responsibilities in terms of reference. So that's starting now. We intentionally felt we were unable to get that started until after the inaugural board was in place. So that's all starting to fall into place. So, excuse me. Just as a reminder, we're heading to and dedicated to promoting Canada to be a global leader in digital research infrastructure. And if you would like more information, please go to the Embryo website there, engagedri.ca. Feel free to contact George Ross, the Executive Director, myself, or any of the other staff or board members. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and be glad to respond to questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Yeah, any questions out there? You can certainly write them in the chat there or just ask them directly.
I have a question, if I may. Grigory Shama from University of Manitoba, WestGrid.
Yeah.
So, on the diagram about new digital organization, you mentioned that research software, and you mentioned that it is mostly Canary thing to handle, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Oh, that's what I said. I should have been a little bit more specific in terms of programs and already underway activities that Embryo is taking over. It's the Canary programs that have been formalized with calls for grants to be made to groups to build various pieces of research software. So that's the only formal program which Embryo will have oversight initially. But we will be expanding that, and certainly I'm aware that there are various activities within the Compute Canada Federation that already fall under that. But it's a file that I think is not well defined, and we certainly haven't got to the point of making inventories and making any detailed plans about how to move forward with that. I should point out as well that a couple of years ago, when the ministry was asking us for position papers about the infrastructure, they did not wish to receive a position paper about research software. So that's another reason why that whole file isn't as well developed. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I just like to note that Compute Canada and WestGrid also involved in research computing support that has to do with software, and it should, ideally it should not be overlooked.
No, but by no means.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, okay. Well, thanks, Jay. And yeah, we'll probably get you in the next couple of town halls too to give updates. So.
All right, I'd be glad to help whenever I can. But I'll stay on the rest for the rest of the call.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to take over then for a little bit here. So there's just a slide with that Engage DRI. It's well worthwhile going and having a look there. There's a lot of information up there. I thought the next thing I'd do was just talk about the COVID-19 Compute Canada support program. I've been working closely with the Compute Canada, in fact the resource allocation group, as we have over the last few weeks developed a way of responding to COVID-19 resource requests. And I've just got sort of one slide here. The details are on the docs wiki, where you can go and have a look. We're keeping it as sort of lightweight and as straightforward as we can so that we can respond very quickly to requests for COVID-19 resources. I think at the moment we've actually had sort of 50 or 60 different requests for maybe a bit of support, for information, for how they'd use the systems. So there are really quite a few. Of that, I think we've only got about half a dozen where we actually ended up giving some additional resources. So very quickly, we've got 3 basic approaches. If you're running a COVID-19 job, any of our analysts can increase the priority of a particular job. So great, you can just do the usual and send an email to support@computecanada.ca and note whatever job IDs that you're running and that you'd like them to get started right away. We can make special allocations, similar to what we do with the resource allocation competition. For the moment, we're setting them up for a max of 3 months. That's renewable. Again, to do so, submit a short request to support@computecanada.ca. And since we're kind of feeling our way to the approach is that an analyst will contact you essentially right away and talk to you a bit about what the project is, where it fits, and how we can respond to it. Just note that it is the RAC Admin Committee that's which actually reviews and has set up the process and that end of things. It is possible for us to make a dedicated reservation if there is a really urgent project where you desperately need resources right now. I don't think we've had actually any of those yet. So to keep the application process as lightweight as possible, all you need to do is send a message to support@computecanada.ca and just put COVID-19 in the subject, and essentially we move your request then to the top of the list and respond as quickly as we can. So feel free, give us a call and see what we can do. And so far, the ones I've seen, I'm doing a lot of the reviewing for the WestGrid ones, and they're fascinating. There are ones that are actually trying to model the virus itself and the proteins involved. There are ones that are looking at the effects on traffic patterns of the lockdowns. Lots of very interesting projects coming in. I think it's kind of fascinating to see how the research community in Canada has sort of dived in and started to work on this, screening things going on for various drugs or development of vaccinations too. So I got my fingers crossed that at least a couple of these will come through and give us the kind of things that we need to help the whole COVID-19 issue. WestGrid itself has set up a set of all the resources, and we keep getting messages. I'm sure everybody here gets lots of emails and notifications. We've just tried to put them on one page, and you can see a list of those. I thought it was kind of neat that on the resources tools, and D-Wave is there. So if you want some quantum computing to do some COVID research, indeed, D-Wave can give you some resources, which would be kind of cool. Right, so that was it for COVID-19, quick overview. I want then to talk about the resource allocation competitions. We do this this time every year, and this set of slides is very similar to what we've done in the last few years, just to go over the RAC results. And of course, RAC started a couple of weeks ago, the beginning of April, with the new allocations implemented. And in a sense, this is same old, same old. The number of applications is going up, just as it's always gone up, another 16%, 590 or so this year. So it's getting to be a big number. We were able to satisfy about 40% of the total compute ask, so pretty competitive. And GPUs, only 26%. GPUs, as usual, are in huge demand. And I should note that's after we bought a whole bunch more GPUs. I think there were something like 768 new ones on Cedar, for instance, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The storage ask was definitely a problem this year. I think I'll say something about that in a minute. The cloud isn't pretty good. We were able to satisfy pretty much all the asks for cloud resources. That's the virtual CPU. And indeed, in Western Canada, the distribution was much as it's always been. The largest universities had most of the applications, and the smaller universities going down from there. So pretty much following the size of the university. And you can see the distribution across some of the subjects. As usual, the bottom there, the bright blue, physics and astronomy, is always the top users. Those are mature subjects who do a lot of simulation. But it seems to me that chunk of the pie has been slowly decreasing as all the other subjects start building up. Certainly chemistry and biochemistry and engineering, the two other big ones, but we can see the humanities starting to build up, agriculture starting to build up, important for Western Canada. So nice to see this basic breakdown. Just a couple of details. I've got our major systems there. So Beluga, the Calcul Quebec system with about 28,000 core years, and we ended up allocating the rightmost column about 80%, 81% of CPU capacity. Cedar, the SFU big machine, allocated about 75%. Graham in Waterloo about 72%, and Niagara about 83%. So these are the four big clusters. And remember that we always aim for that 80%, and that allows about 20% for opportunistic default use. So pretty good this year, especially with the new resources that we're able to buy from the advance that we got from the cyber infrastructure, the DRI amounts. So overall about 78%, so that's good, and it gives you some overview there of what we've actually got. 232,000 core years, highly averaged over all the different kinds of cores we've got, and requested about 455,000 core years. So we're getting to have some pretty impressive resources, but also, of course, all the trends are going up. Here's the CPU trends. The red line, way up at the top, that's what we get asked for. The blue line is pretty much what we've got, and the yellow one is at the bottom is what we've actually allocated. So there's the difference between the blue and the yellow is that 20% that we keep for default users, and then there's this huge gap between what we asked for, and we can see that gap is growing over the years. And at the moment, we have no plans and no funding for any increased, any purchase of new resources between now and next year. So we're expecting the red line to keep going and the blue line to be pretty much flat. It'll be a bigger problem next year. GPUs, same kind of thing, and this includes the purchases that we've just made. So we aimed again for that kind of 80%. Helios there, that's an old machine, and so that's slowly being pulled down. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. So demand for GPUs continues to be the competitive end of things with a 26% success rate. And again, we aim for that 80% actual allocation of capacity. And there's the GPU trends, same graph, just worse. That huge gap between the blue and the red. And what kind of worries me about this year is that that looks like a bit of an exponential increase in the requests for GPUs. I think there are two effects that we're beginning to see. The first one is that linear increase in the number of asks, but we've also seen that so many more asks are asking for GPUs. So two effects there. Essentially, it's all that machine learning stuff. Everybody is using GPUs for some kind of training system, prediction system on whatever research they're doing. I will mention storage explicitly because storage this year was really tough. We were well over-asked for storage, and storage is tough because we cannot just automatically scale depending on a science score. We have to see what's already being used, whether, for instance, a major database or set of data is required, in which case it's hard to cut it down by half just because that we don't have enough storage. So each of the regions worked through their storage asks, comparing to existing use, comparing to the recommendations from the science reviewers, from the project, and trying to cut down. I think in the end I did that for WestGrid, and I had to find upwards of 3 or 4 petabytes that we just didn't have. And occasionally I'm afraid I have made a mistake and not noticed some requirements. So if you really feel your storage allocation would significantly affect your research, then please give me a call. We can have a look at it and see what we can do. And note the numbers there. The project store, 72%. That's the basic long-term persistent disk storage on our machines. So we're right up there in the end, and you don't really want to get that too high because then there's not enough room for the file system to handle things. Dcache is a specific storage system for Large Hadron Collider Atlas experiments and such. We actually allocated 100% this year, but they handle that a bit more on their own. Cloud introduced a lot more storage, which was fortunate this year. They bought a whole bunch more, and that's up around the 80%. And Nearline's the tape backup storage. We have moved a lot of people onto Nearline just because it was the only thing we had some stuff available, and up around 100%, but Nearline is not quite as used in practice, so we weren't too worried about that end. Yeah, so storage is getting, I think I mentioned this last year, it was really one of my biggest worries, and this year, next year, I think it's still going to be a big worry. We're not going to have much in the way of additional storage. Just as a little aside, COVID-19 is hitting our storage allocation. The Beluga system in Quebec has a bunch of storage ready to be installed, sitting on the floor, but installing extra equipment is not an essential service. So the Beluga folks can't get in to actually install the storage. These are minor details, like the storage boxes are heavy. You need 2 people to get those in. So, and you're only allowed 1 person in a data center at a time. So there isn't actually quite as much storage as we thought we'd have give April 1st, but give or take another month or so, hopefully that'll get installed. And the cloud was good. We've got enough cloud allocations. We bought a whole bunch more cloud resources and storage. So cloud's in good shape. And in fact, the request for vCPUs decreased. I think that we're seeing quite a lot of maturity in use of cloud, that folks are beginning to understand what they need, how they can do things, what one of these platforms or portals really does, and are changing their asks to reflect actual usage. That's great. Thank you very much to those who are doing that. We really appreciate it, but we do have, and that means that we do have a little bit of leeway in the cloud, and we're wondering about, for instance, creating a cluster in the cloud if we need to, and we already do that for training events. There's the monetary value. It hasn't changed from last year. I don't think there's much to say there. I did update some of the Amazon stuff, but remember that's just you know, trying to compare what we charge or what we can do this stuff for, and what, for instance, a big cloud provider can is very rough, as codes run sometimes 2 or 3 times as fast, depending on what kind of nodes, etc. you get, and everything's kind of very averaged when we talk about these numbers. I want to make our very standard cautionary note here. We've got a whole bunch of new users around, so remember that you get a core year allocation, but that is translated to a priority for the scheduler. The idea is that if a project always has a few reasonable sized jobs in the queue, then over the year they will get about what they were allocated in core years. But if you don't submit a job, well, you don't get to bank the core years, just that you don't get the jobs then. So if you don't have jobs in the queue, you lose that part of the allocation. Of course, again, our note that scheduling, that's one of those arts. There are so many effects sitting in a scheduler that have to be very, very carefully balanced. So feel free, go and have a look at the job scheduling policies doc. It's a bit detailed, but well worthwhile when you're starting to think about scaling up your jobs, running more jobs. What happens when you can run 1,000 jobs? What happens when you really want to run a job on 10,000 cores? All those questions, give us a call. It really isn't easy to do this scheduling, and we really like to give as much advice as we can. And this page is just a point. Yeah, if you got a new rack allocation, go and look at the docs. Come and talk to us. Same kind of thing. Yeah, any questions about racks? Or cool. And I'll remind you that the next rack for 2021 will start in September. Let's see, it's about 22. When it comes to an operations report, the one I'd really like to note, the one that's happened since the last town hall, was the Cedar upgrade. Took a week in March, late in mid-March there, but the Cedar guys added a huge number of compute nodes and a ton of GPU nodes. And I'll note those are the V100 Voltas, right? They're not the old Pascals. So Cedar now has a mix of the Pascals, the P100s, and the Voltas. And a special note that I want to make is that the jobs are scheduled by default on the P100s. That's what everybody's used to, and you don't want your job going onto a completely different GPU if it's already optimized for the Pascals. This means if you're going to use the Voltas, you have to explicitly ask for them. And I understand right now that not that many people are specifically asking for the Voltas. So if you can make use of the Voltas, now is a good time to do so. And there's a link there. I don't have much to say about outages and maintenance. I usually give some details of this, but actually almost everything for the last few months has been pretty straightforward. Little minor outages, some the usual issues with the big shared file systems, but relatively straightforward. Nothing I think that we need to really look at. So good stuff going on there. I think that the systems are pretty clean, even though and running really well. One point I put on this slide was just Niagara's got a big maintenance coming up on May 20th to the 21st. So in another month's time, the big Toronto large parallel machine will go down for a couple of days. And at that point, I'm going to hand over to Alex for an update on user training and outreach, especially now that we're all moving to completely virtual training sessions.
Yes.
Alex?
Yep. Thank you, Patrick. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Next slide, please. As you know, for the past few years, we organized 2 summer schools per year, and this
Alex,
year we are. Oh.
Alex, just your camera is getting your forehead. Just.
Oh, okay. I can see myself just fine, but okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I just switched the video. So this year we're moving entirely online, and we have the summer school from the last week of May until the first week of July. So tentatively it is 7 weeks, and we're still planning the courses, so that could change. We will have a single stream. We will take these 7 weeks, subdivide them into blocks, and each block will be 2 or 3 days, an individual course. And then instead of having live teaching for live lectures for a long time, we are going to rely on pre-recorded materials a lot. So we'll have reading materials, pre-recorded videos, and so exercises. And then to set the pace in each course, we're going to have live Zoom sessions. So each course will have something like 4 or 5 live Zoom sessions where we'll do exercises, we'll review the material, we'll answer questions, etc. So the hands-on are going to be on the training cluster, mostly on the training cluster on Arbutus system, which emulates the Compute Canada standard software environment. And the courses that are confirmed are on the right on this slide. So we have the usual selection, and there are a couple of new additions. So machine learning with Python, PyTorch, and also programming in Julia, in addition to the usual courses. And then we have several other courses that we're currently planning, and they're not on the right yet, but we're going to add them. So I think that we'll have a course probably on the new Sokai system at UBC, etc. So the announcement for the summer school will go live in early May, and at that point we'll open the registration. So please keep an eye on our homepage, westgrid.ca, and sometime in early May, we will have an announcement there. Next slide, please. Just the usual online training we do every year. So we have biweekly online webinars, and we already had 7 webinars this term, starting from January. There are 3 webinars left. So the usual place to find more details to register for these is on this slide, the bit.ly link, WG 2020A. And for the previous webinars, you can go to the same webpage, click on the webinar, and then that will take you to the slides and the screencast recording. And then for upcoming webinars, you can simply get more details and then a link to register. So the next webinar is going to be in about 10 days on 3D scientific visualization. Then we have machine learning with Julia, and also mining Twitter data. And also I want to mention that we are not the only ones giving training online. So our partner member institutions are also switching to online training. And I want to mention the U of A online boot camps that are going to be from late April until early May. As far as I know, it's not been announced yet, but you can keep an eye on the website that I listed on this slide, and I think they will have an announcement fairly soon. And that's all I wanted to mention.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Cool. Yeah, okay. I think we've sort of come to the end of our session today. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope that video managed to handle most of you okay. The usual links, and we will send out the recording and the slides. So thanks, everyone, and good luck with coping with our lockdowns and COVID-19. So see ya.
Thank you.